Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's workshop. As people join us, we will get started right at 7 o'clock. I do like to start 15 minutes early just for those folks that are jumping on the call. And so I will be monitoring. Let's see, if you're logging on and watching it through Facebook, I'll flip back and forth in case there's any questions. But most of the folks are going to be signing up today, I think, through Zoom. Majority of people sign up through Zoom or watch it through Zoom. And for those of you who are joining us now, I will make a recording of this tonight's workshop. Tonight's Tuesday, and you'll have that. So as you are trying to take notes, or if you are trying to take notes, just know that you can always jump on, and I will save it on YouTube. You could jump on YouTube and watch it again, or send it to friends and family, whatever you may want to do. So again, we will get started here right at 7 o'clock. I'm just doing some final tweaks to the emails and things. So again, most of you are going to be on Zoom. Some of you will be on Facebook, and some will be on YouTube. But I'm going to go ahead and be quiet here for about 5-10 minutes. I'm going to set everything else up, and we will get started right on time. Thank you. All right, I see a bunch more people have joined us. Again, we will get started right at 7 o'clock. Feel free to ask any Q&A as we go, for those of you who are on the call already. So just click on the Q&A if you're on Zoom. I will see that pop up on my screen. I have Zoom up behind what I'm doing. So I do see the Zoom questions right away. If you're on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn or any of the other channels that we do the webinar on, um, I'll cycle through those at the end, try to get as many questions as I can answered. But tonight's presentation is roughly 45 minutes, 50 minutes-ish. I'll take 5 or 10 minutes at the end to answer any questions, and we'll just take it from there. So again, if you have any questions, just feel free to pop those in the Q&A, not the chat. It is the Q&A, not the chat. And we will go ahead and get started here in just a few minutes. Actually, I'm going to go run grab a water. It seems like mine's out. So I'll see you here in a few minutes. All right, I'm back. We got a few minutes here before we start. Again, if I see we have a few more people have joined the call. This call will be recorded tonight. I'm going to edit out this part, but it'll start right at 7 o'clock, the recording. So you don't need to take too many notes. I try to make it, and I'll do timestamps on YouTube so that you can just jump in there and get what you need. But the most part, I will go through, whether or not you're married or widower and widow benefits and all that kind of thing. So again, feel free, sit back and just enjoy it. If you have questions, pop them in the Q&A. If you are on um, Zoom, and I just got a question. So since I've got a few minutes here and I'm all set, by the way, nothing like grabbing a cup full of leftover coffee when you think it was water. So that's why I ran down and got some water. All right. Quick question here from Anonymous says, I see each year is a maximum you can earn while collecting Social Security without penalty. I do cover this tonight. Since I'm not at full retirement age, is this amount calculated from January to December each calendar year or calculated from the month of your first payment? It's calendar year. It is the calendar year. So you'll need to be aware of that. All right. All right. That was a good question. Again, feel free to pop questions in. I've got a few minutes here before we get started. Give you something to look at besides me there by the palm tree. Just for those of you that have been on calls before, you know that I am in South Florida and we do this call nationally. So we have everybody from, well, I've had people from Anchorage all across the states. So all kinds of different time zones, Hawaii. And this is the best time zone that we've been able to figure out. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop those in the Q&A if you're on Zoom and put those in the comments if you are on YouTube or any of the other LinkedIn. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here in just a few minutes. Rob asked a question. It has nothing to do with Social Security, by the way, but he asked me which camera I'm using. As you'll notice, it's a fairly decent camera, but I use the Sony Sigma 6600, I think. Anyhow, it's got the little Sigma signal on it. So I use that, and then I just use a regular Shure mic. Um, if you're ever interested in doing podcasts or anything like that. So anyhow, it's a pretty easy setup. Doesn't take much to put all that together. Hey, I always think it's interesting. People ask me questions. That has nothing to do with Social Security, but I'm here, so feel free to answer. I'll ask any questions. I'll try to get to them. Susan asked, "What is the Roth rollover strategy?" So, Susan, in order to maximize the most out of retirement, there's two factors really. One is maximizing your Social Security because you're going to get Social Security for life, but we want to maximize it and figure out how we could maximize it. You're going to get that a little bit later here on tonight's webinar. The other part of it is minimizing taxes. So, one of the ways that folks with $250,000 or more in IRAs, 403Bs, things like that, is what's called a Roth conversion. And I will talk a little bit about this, but the reason why it's in this workshop and not kind of a standalone is that in order to maximize the amount you get in retirement, we want to maximize Social Security, obviously. You want to maximize your returns on your investments. But the other part is you want to minimize tax. And I will get into that, but I really could not get. I didn't feel like I was doing a good enough job by just talking about Social Security. So I wanted to also talk about a couple of ways you can minimize taxes. And so I threw that in here. And by and large, on the replies that I get, most people appreciated me adding that to it. And it's generally only about 10 minutes long, but it just looks at a way that you can legally minimize your taxes. Because if you have high balances in 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, 457s, so forth and so on, it almost makes sense for most people, not everybody, but most people, to take money and convert it into a Roth and then take the money out after um, after you pass, like 60, 70 years old. With RMDs pushes out the amount, or pushes up the amount that you have to take out. So you end up paying higher tax. This Roth recovery or Roth rollover strategy helps minimize that tax. So we'll talk a little bit more about it, but that's generally how they get set up. Quick question. What is the turnaround of receiving first Social Security payment after applying? Does it matter what the date or the month? So you can apply for this 3 months prior to you wanting to get a check if you're turning 67. You pick the date that you want. All right. So the turnaround time is, by and large, you want to do it ahead of time. Keep in mind, and this is the same for those of you who've been on Medicare workshops with me as well. Um, Medicare department is overloaded. Social Security, with all the cuts to all the government agencies, you're going to have a heck of a time. Make sure you get things in early. If you're allowed to do it 3 months prior to your 65th birthday for Medicare, or whether or not you do it 3 months prior to starting Social Security, you want to go ahead and apply 3 months ahead of time. There are numerous occasions where people have applied for Medicare and Social Security. They've lost the paperwork, they've had to reapply, and then they get it 6 months from the time when they started. All right. It's bad enough before some of these agencies had their budgets cut. It's going to be a lot more going forward. So again, the earliest date you can do it is the date you want to sign yourself up, set up an appointment, get in there, and get it scheduled as soon as possible. All right. Um, okay. All right. Oh, we got another question. Um, do I have a workshop for Medicare as well? Yes. My office does Medicare as well. And just we'll get started here in 1 minute, but the difference with Medicare, you really have to ask yourself one simple question, and that is affordability. If you can afford to get it, most people pick Plan G, as in golf. You get Part A, you pay for Part B, you get Part or Plan G. And then if you can't afford it, because Medicare is going to run you, well, in South Florida here, it's kind of expensive. So it runs you about 400, a little over $400 a month. Everywhere else in the country, it's slightly less, but yes, we do those, and feel free to jump on that call. Also, we do one with estate planning. Now, the estate planning you have to be careful of. The attorney that we have is a Florida bar um, state, attorney for estate planning, but it's similar in other states. But the interesting thing is when I have these, he gives you things to think about and to ask your estate planning attorney in your particular state. Most of them are going to work very similar. It's just the nuances of how they're set up. So we do have that. That's another big one that we run as well. So, um, all right. All right. Let me take a quick drink of water here real quick, and then we will get fired up. Ooh. Turn my camera on too early. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight is going to be specifically for Social Security and also minimizing your taxes in retirement, doing Roth conversions. That's a small piece to it, but it is an important piece. And tonight we will talk all about maximizing Social Security. What's interesting is some people get the impression that Social Security, there's nothing really you can do to maximize it. That's really not the case. There are a number of things you can do and different strategies, and I'll share with you a few of those in order to get this. And the interesting thing, the whole point of Social Security is that you want to maximize it because you get it for life, right? It isn't one-time payment. You get Social Security for the rest of your life. And if you can get an additional 20, 30, 50% in Social Security, that adds up to be a huge difference over the course of your retirement. All right. So again, this will be recorded for those of you who like taking notes. Feel free to take notes if you want, but we will be sending out an email that has the link to this. It will be shared on YouTube. I need to edit out the first 15, 20 minutes, but it will be from this point going forward recorded. All right. So we're really going to talk about maximizing Social Security and lowering taxes. A couple of disclosures first is I am a licensed investment advisor. I do not work for Social Security Administration. I'm also not an attorney, and I am not a CPA. I will talk a little bit about strategies for lowering taxes, and I won't talk necessarily about returns on investments or anything like that, although that is my area of expertise. All right. So two things here. First is that in order to be on this webinar, you signed up to download or get a free Social Security workbook. All right. So the Social Security workbook is yours for free. At the end of this shop, I will show you how to get that. You basically put in your name and the PDF gets emailed to you right away. All right. So there's two options to this course. One is you can download the workbook. Again, everybody gets that for free and fill it out yourself and go through it. It's kind of like a self-help, self-step type of workbook. And it's about 8, 9 pages long, and it's going to help you figure out how to maximize Social Security. All right, your own Social Security. It doesn't coordinate benefits, so that's important. But for your own Social Security, that's what the workbook is for. And again, everybody gets that for free. Option 2 is that you have our staff provide you a report where we do all the heavy lifting. So you essentially give us your statements, or at the very least, let us know at full retirement age how much you're going to get. And whether or not you're married, divorced, or spousal, all these kind of things. And we will do the heavy lifting for you, and it will show you, say, hey, if you waited 2 years, or if you took a spouse's benefit before your benefit, or your benefit before your spouse, it is going to numerically give you the best option in order to maximize Social Security. The reason why I caveat numerically is that if you wait, you're going to get 8% more per year. I think everybody is aware of that. If you're not, that's pretty much what it comes down to. 8% per year that you wait. The question is, how do you bridge the gap? In other words, if you're going to retire today and you're 62 and your full retirement is 67, so let's say you got 5 years there, you want that extra 40% in your Social Security check. How are you going to bridge the gap? How do you get money out of your investments and pay yourself a salary? That's essentially what you're doing. How are you going to do that? Again, our staff and I, we do that for you. All right, so that's the two options with the workbook. Now, why is Social Security such a hot topic? And the main reason is there are so many people applying and starting their Social Security benefit. There's 12,000 people every single day. This workshop alone gets hundreds of people every week that sign up for Social Security because you really want some Social Security training. Again, it's one of these things that if you're going to get it for life, it would behoove you to look and do a little bit of research to figure out how you can maximize it, right? So 12,000 baby boomers turn 65 every single day, 3.5 million people every year for the next 10 years. Now, knowing that it's 3.5 million, a little over 3.5 million people for the next 10 years, what is that doing to Social Security? And for most of you, you already know, essentially it's making it bankrupt. We'll talk a little bit about that, but it's essentially a bankrupt program. And they'll need to do something to fix it. All right. So, what does Social Security mean to you? And really, over 65% of retired Americans get more than half of their retirement income from Social Security. This is why it's so important to take a little time and figure out how you're going to maximize it, because it's so, it is your hedge against longevity. For instance, if you're getting Social Security, you never have to really worry about running out of money because you always have a Social Security check. Now, if that Social Security check is $1,500 a month, you're not going to be living well. So we want to make sure we're making sure that we're maximizing that for you. All right. And the other thing too is that you're really dependent on, and again, I've been financial advisor now for going on 3 decades, but um, when you first started working for companies, like I started my career out of college working for AT&T. Most people at that time received pensions. You worked there for your 30 years, you got your pension, and they had 401k plans, but not everybody had 401k plans because you relied on pensions. And now there you'd be hard to find a company with a pension, private company. Most everybody does 401k plans now. So it's more well, it puts more stress on you, the individual, making sure that you have money saved up for retirement. Because one of the things I can say is that it takes a while. If you need $1,000 a month in retirement, you have to save $300,000. Now that's a lot of money, and it's hard to save $300,000 overnight. So if you're coming down the home stretch, we have to make sure that what you have is what we're working with, but we can't also be too risky with it. We don't. Nobody wants to see 2008 again, right? And the market has not been kind here lately. So, do you insure your home? Obviously, you have homeowners insurance, you get car insurance, health insurance. What the takeaway here is that Social Security is your insurance policy for your retirement. Again, you're going to get that money for life, even if the market goes bad. Unless the federal government goes bankrupt, you're going to be in good shape as far as getting your Social Security check. Again, we'll talk a little bit about that. So I love this uh, because obviously it's been in the news a lot. Social Security, you got people that are 150, 160 years old that are in the system. What I have yet to see is whether or not they're actually getting checks. So apparently some say yes, some say no. But this is the oldest living person as of now. She's 116 years old. And yeah, if you're living to be 150 years old, that's something. All right. So what is our focus for today going to be? It's going to be really the ground rules. We'll talk a little bit about that. Strategies. We're going to talk about strategies if you're married, divorced, and widow or widowers. And again, we're going to finalize everything and wrap it up with a little bit on taxes. So some of the basics of Social Security, how do you qualify? Super simple. You would have had to have worked for a company or a a company or a municipality or some sort of government job where you're paying into Social Security. By the way, if you weren't even paying into it, you have been sort of grandfathered in. There are 3 million more new people who just qualified for Social Security because they got away with the windfall elimination provision and some of the others. And I'll talk briefly on that. But suffice it to say, everybody pretty much gets Social Security as long as you qualify and have paid into it. 40 credits. So this is 10 years worth of work. One credit essentially is 1 quarter, 3 months. For every 3 months where you've earned a credit, you must have earned at least $1,500 of earnings. Okay. So if you only worked part-time and you worked 3 months or not 3 months, but if you worked say 9 months of the year and you were off 3 months, then that skipped your one Social Security credit. What's interesting is some people do work those type of jobs, and although I haven't personally walked them through the system, um, they would have missed certain quarters because they would not have earned $1,500. So, yeah, just something to think about. It is your highest 35 years. So if you've worked 40 years, they're going to average the highest 35. Now, it will be indexed for inflation. For instance, if you earn, say, $20,000 in 1980, it is a factor of roughly 4 when you factor in inflation. So you earn $20,000. Essentially, it would have been the same as earning $80,000 today. So they take that. They average 35 years, your highest 35, and that is what they calculate or use to calculate your Social Security benefit. And again, there are some exclusions, and the government just got away from these. So I probably won't have this slide, or I'll have the slide, but I'm going to go ahead and take that out for the next presentation. All right. So how does Social Security work? You as a worker contribute almost 6.5%, 6.2% of your pay, up to a maximum of 168,000 in 2024. It is adjusted for inflation of 176,000 in 2025. So what does that mean? If you earn $180,000, 176 of it, you'll have to pay the 6.2%. The other 4,000 of it, you no longer have to pay Social Security. All right. So that's important to know. You'll get a slight increase in your pay once you tap out of your Social Security benefit. And the employer matches 6.2%. So it's 12.4% of whatever you make goes into this pool that we call Social Security. Now, the interesting thing about Social Security is that whatever goes in it today, whatever's getting pulled out of everybody's paychecks today, goes to pay everybody's benefit today. So that money really is a revolving door. It isn't accrued for you. It doesn't have your Social Security number attached to it. There's no bank account with your amount that you've paid into it. That would have made more sense and much more sensible when we first started the program, but that isn't the case. There's roughly 2.5 people for every one person taking out. And as you get older, there's obviously more and more people taking out than putting in. So by design, it's very flawed. All right. We'll talk a little bit about how they can fix it, but the system is essentially flawed. So 2010, it went in the red, which means more people are taking out than putting in. 70 million recipients. Now that's a lot. 70 million people are taking money out, and it is fully funded through 2035. Now, this is 2035 as of last, I think it was October. The Social Security Administration does a review of this plan every, I believe it's October, maybe November, but it was fully funded to 2035 before we just allowed 3 million more people to start taking Social Security. So we expect this number to go down. So I would not be surprised to see this number of 2032, where it is fully funded through 2032, and beyond that, it would not be. So again, we look at last year's numbers when they did this. And on 2036, you are roughly funded 83 cents on the dollar. So 17% underfunded on 2036. And obviously, this isn't anywhere near correct because it's worse than this. All right. There's 4 basic things that they can do to improve solvency. And I know they've kicked this around. I've seen in the Wall Street Journal one of these that they were just talking about here recently. Increasing the minimum retirement age from 62. For those of you that follow along, you can start Social Security at age 62 for your own benefit. There is an exception to this rule. But for your own benefit, you can start at 62. It is at a reduced payout, but you could start it at 62. They could raise this now to 64, 65. Increase full retirement age from age 67 to 68, 69, 70. I mean, people are living longer. When Social Security initially came out, the average life expectancy was 65. So if they adjusted this for the average age and made it 77, there'd be a lot of unhappy people for one. But that's really what they would need to do in order to keep it set up the way it was initially. Now, obviously, they're not going to do that. So you don't have to send me any nasty emails, but they are going to have to do something, right? And they could increase the payroll tax. So now you're paying 6.2%. Maybe they say, okay, well, now you're going to pay 7%, 8%. Maybe they make the employer pay 7, 8%. Maybe that on that $175,000 cap, they just take it off altogether. That's another way they can do it. Or they could reduce benefits. By the way, most of you and I are close to this 65 age group. Most people vote that are in that age group. So they are definitely not going to reduce your benefit. Or you're going to vote them out. And politicians love to stay in power for as long as they can. All right. So here's a quick little chart. This is not current as far as most people, their full benefit is age 67 today that are on this call, for those of you who had put in how old you were. But this just goes to show you the decrease. So if you apply early, the takeaway here on this chart is that if you apply early at 62, you're going to reduce your benefit by 25%. If you start your benefit at age 70, which is past your full retirement age, which is 67, 66 or 67, you're going to get 132% of your salary or your Social Security benefit. So this is a big, it's almost double whether or not you start at age 62 and whether or not you start at 70. And by the way, this doesn't factor in the cost of living increases. So it is double. By and large, you're going to get 2.5% increases by cost of living increases, kind of an average. So if you took the 8% plus the 2.5%, which gets you 10% over these 8 years, your Social Security essentially doubles. So if your benefit here was $1,000 a month at age 70, you can reasonably assume that it would be $2,000 a month. Again, this is why we spend time on this, and we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to maximize your benefit. All right, so 3 distinct Social Security benefits. One is that it is your own benefit, okay? You've paid money in, you get your own benefit. This is one of the 3. 2 is spousal benefit. If you were if your spouse was working, you can get 50% of your spouse's benefit, their full retirement age. So we'll show you a little bit of breakdown on that. That's number 2. You could get a spousal benefit. And you can also get a widow or widower benefit, which is basically a surviving spouse benefit. All right. So you can get one of the 3, or you get the highest of the 3, but you can't double dip. So you can't get yours and also a widow benefit. That is not allowed. And I do get that question quite a bit. All right. Lorenzo, I do see your question. You're asking me if you turned 67. Let me hold off and answer that question because I don't know when you were born, and it depends on when you were born as to, if you want to put that in the chat, I can answer that at the end. Okay. All right. So filing options. This is allowed. However, I don't see anybody doing this. All right. So you can file. The only time I did have one client that did this, but it didn't work out, and I'll explain. But you can file and rescind your benefit within a year, within 365 days. You have to pay back whatever they paid you. So if you started your benefit at 62, so let me just go into my example. So I had a client that started his benefit. He retired from school district. He was 64, 60. Yeah, I think it was 64, 65. So he had a year or two before he hit 67, which was his full retirement age. So he started getting benefits. Then he received a large inheritance. He's like, well, I should probably not take my Social Security now. I said, yeah, you can apply to rescind it. You have to pay back the money that you received, and you can go ahead and it works as if you had never applied for Social Security. That way you can get the higher payout. It happened during COVID. He could not get a hold of anybody. And he basically just said, you know what, it's not worth it, and continued his benefit. So in theory, you can do it. I have seen it done once. And even then, because of COVID, he couldn't get a hold of anybody. He ended up not doing it. So um, know that it's there. Only time you really want to do that is if you had some sort of big windfall, or if you, let's say you retired, all of a sudden your dream job comes to you, and or some employer says, hey, you know what, we really need you to work for us. It's a specialty thing. You may have needed Social Security at the time. You can pay it back and go work, because I will show you here why that's important as well. Uh, Considerations for married couples. So this is one of the, if you're a married couple, this is one of the things that commonly gets done incorrectly. Okay, but I'm going to go through a quick illustration here to show you kind of what could be done and some of the reasons why it falls apart. Right. So if you're trying to apply for spousal, you need to be married for at least 1 year. Primary worker must have filed. Okay, so whoever was the high earner needs to have filed. Generally, must not qualify for a benefit on your own that is more than half of the spouse's benefit. And I have an example, but I want you to understand that. And it's 50% of the spouse's PIA, or primary insurance amount, not the amount they're getting paid. It's the amount that they get at age 67, not the amount they get at age 70. All right. So this is an important distinction here. Let's talk a little about an example. So John here gets $2,000 a month. Jane here was a housewife. She did not work, but she is eligible for half of John's benefit. So she is eligible for $1,000 a month. So some of the things you have to look out for. If John had filed earlier, and let's say he did it at 62, so he doesn't get $2,000 a month, he gets 1,500. Well, now the wife also gets a reduced payment as well. All right. And conversely, if he waited and now is getting $2,600 roughly a month, his wife is still getting 1,000. You say, well, 50% of 26 is not 1,000. That's because you only get the amount of the full retirement age, not the amount they're getting paid. So please, if you have questions on that, let me know, or sign up for a time that you can talk to our group, and we'll be happy to walk you through that. All right. So survivor's benefits, that's at the death of the first spouse, the surviving spouse can receive a maximum. Okay. So again, you can't get both, but you can get the maximum amount of benefit as a survivor. Right. So you can get your own benefit if it's more than the survivor's, than the deceased spouse. You can get the benefit of the deceased, and or you can get 82.5% if the primary, or the person who's deceased, started filing early. So this is one of the situations where if you file early, you're not only hurting yourself. I mean, it's one thing if you have to get Social Security because you can't, make ends meet. But if you are, if you have money set aside, you've got some savings, this is why the planning of this is so important. All right, some of the common mistakes we see is that the higher wage earner files early. So this is one of the things that think of it this way. If you've got a married couple you want the primary earner to wait as long as they can. Again, this is just general rule of thumb, because if the primary earner, especially if the primary earner is older, so the primary earner, um, they get a higher amount because they've earned more. But in addition to that, once they pass away, now the other spouse gets the stepped up amounts. So it's important, again, to coordinate those benefits. And we give you a spreadsheet that kind of shows you all this. But it's important to know that you don't want the primary earner, the highest earner, to file first. You want them to actually file last. And we can numerically show you that if you, again, decide to come see us. Both delay past full retirement age. This is the other one. As soon as one of them hits full retirement age, we would want one of the spouses to claim. Typically, it's the lesser amount. And that way, the higher amount, you can delay another couple of years, get 8% on a higher amount. Numerically, it works out better for a family. All right. So if you're divorced, here's a couple of the rules. Again, one of these rules gets a little bit muddied. Just if you're divorced, just know this. You have to be married for 10 years. Easy enough. You know if you've been married to somebody for 10 years and been divorced. Oh, excuse me. Not currently married, you can't get remarried. You can the same benefit amounts and reductions apply for early claiming for regular spousal. So again, I showed you that chart, how you can get decreased payments if you don't coordinate the benefits. And you have to be divorced for at least 2 years. So one of the interesting things here is, let's suppose you're divorced for twice. You've been married twice, and you've been married for 10 years or more. As long as you didn't remarry after your second divorce, you can pick whichever benefit is higher. All right. So this is where you want to talk to Social Security and say, okay, which benefit is higher? I'm going to get the highest of the two. You can do that, but you have to be divorced for at least 2 years. This is the one that commonly gets overlooked. So if you are divorced, you have to be divorced for 2 years before you can get the spousal benefit, divorce benefit. All right. So that's important. I commonly see this overlooked. Um, One thing that I will say, the slide here, basically what the slide boils down to is that if you are married and you're filing for spousal or divorce benefit, don't worry about your spouse finding out, because they don't know. You were entitled to your benefit. Your spouse's benefit is no way impacted. They don't get a reduced benefit. Matter of fact, Social Security doesn't even notify them. All right. So if you're let's say not talking terms with an ex-spouse, it's no big issue. They won't even see that you are claiming on their Social Security. All right. Now, considerations for widows and widowers. There's a special segment of rules for widow and widowers. Qualifications is obviously you've got one, you have to be a widower or widow. You can be 60 years old. All right. So this is one of the distinctions that's different, is that you can start widow or widower benefits, survivor benefits, at age 60. All right. Unmarried, you can't get married before you're age 60, but at age 60, you can get remarried. Right. I have a buddy of mine that works with Social Security as well. He had a lady and gentleman come and join one of his workshops. They were just getting ready to get married, and she was 59 and a half. So they postponed the wedding for 6 months so that she could get the widow benefits from her ex-husband. So that's kind of the only case that I've run across, but it is important to know that you cannot get remarried before age 60. You do lose that benefit if you do. You need to be married for a minimum of 9 months prior to the deceased passing. And really, this people game the system, right? There's always somebody out there that's thinking they can game the system. And this is for those that, let's say somebody has terminal cancer. They say, you know what? We've been friends a long time. Why don't you marry me? You can get my benefit, and I'm no longer going to be here, but at least you can get a higher benefit from the government. Government will disallow that. It had been tried actually successfully for a while, but they stepped in. Now, if you've got a married couple and one of them goes to war, gets killed in action, they do make a special exception, and that would be an exception for it. But just know that everybody's looking to bend the rules or break the rules. So that's uh, I'm sure I'll have another slide for something else sometime down in the future. But here's a quick example. Let's see how we're doing on time. Let me check time here real quick because I want everybody to know that okay, I still got a little bit of time here. I'll explain here in a minute. Let me get through this slide. Here's a quick illustration. So John never elected his benefit. All right. So you've got a married couple. John just dies at age 64, but he never elected his benefit. Right. So he didn't start his Social Security benefit. His benefit at the full retirement age would have been 2,150. Right. So he didn't make it to 2,150, but his full retirement, had he have turned age 67, would have been 2,150. All right. So this again, this is why I do this illustration, but it's to show you that it's not just quite as cut and dry as you might think. And this is why mistakes happen if you don't talk to somebody that knows how Social Security works. All right. So Jane was 5 years younger. She's age 59. Now, remember, I said that you cannot get remarried. So she did not get remarried until after age 60. And Jane's estimated benefit on her own at age 62, remember this is early, was $1,197. So if somebody comes to me and they say, well, this is my situation. This is what we're getting. My husband passed away. What should I do? I say, okay, this is good because this is probably what a lot of widower and widowers are looking at doing. So we say, okay, you've got three strategies you could do. The first is you could file for widow or widower benefits at age 60. So you don't have to wait to age 62. You can file early. Remember, that's one of the exceptions. You'll get 1,537 a month. And the benefit will stay at 1,537 for life. So we assume that she's going to live to age 85. Again, it's important to know the life expectancy. So we put those numbers in there. She gets $1,537 for the 25 years. And that gets you 461,000. So, okay, that's what you can reasonably expect if you were to file strategy number one. Now, there is strategy number two. You file for your own benefit at age 62, which is 1197. Jane gets 1197. And she can switch at age 67 to her husband's benefit, widow benefit, which is 2,150. So we put that together, you get 1197, but at age 67 you get 2,150. So that equals 538,000. That's about $70,000 more. That's just by knowing how to strategize this. And finally, we say there is a third strategy. You can file for your widow benefit at age 60. Remember, this is the only time that you can file earlier than age 62. You'll get the $1,537. And at age 70, you file for your own benefit. So she's filing for widow benefits at age 60, which is essentially her husband's benefit. She's getting $1,537. And at age 70, she is qualifying for her own benefit, which is higher than her husband's. So now she's getting 2,108, and that equals 563,000, or a net gain of 22%. We didn't modify anything. She didn't work another year. She didn't do anything. She just came to our office and said, what is the best strategy for me? And we say, look, if you need the benefit earlier at age 60 because you don't want to work, then this is the one we want to do. We could also do strategy number two if you're going to work part-time or if you have a job. But as you can see, just by making a little tweak to your plan, you've been able to increase it by 17% up to 22%. All right. Can you work and still collect? Yes, you still can collect. However, there is a take back. Social Security allows you to work. You can earn 23,000. You've got a 62-year-old that says, "You know what? I've just had it. I am going to retire." We get a lot of people that work in the school districts around here, turn 62, say, "You know what? I'm going to go ahead and retire." And you can only earn $23,400. If you earn any more than that, Social Security starts taking money away. Quick example. Let's say that somebody is earning $43,000, which is 20,000 over this. So you got somebody earning $43,000. They say, "You know what? I'm just going to start Social Security." You say, "Well, it doesn't really benefit you, but this is why you shouldn't do it." 40,000, 43,000 is 20,000 over this limit. You just divide anything over the limit by 2, which in this case is 20,000. So what happens is until you've paid back that $20,000 to Social Security, they are only going to pay you $3,400 a year. That doesn't help you in retirement. In addition, it locks in the lower benefit. Remember, every year that you wait, you're going to get 8%. I have had somebody do this because their neighbor said, "Oh, well, by the way, the neighbor was not working. And this lady actually was getting a small pension. So she was getting a pension, she was getting this, and she was also working part-time. So she was making 75,000. I said, "Well, I don't understand why you're doing this." I said, $75,000. You're way above what you would be making in Social Security. It's like, "Well, my neighbor told me that I'd be making money." I go, "No, you're not going to make any money." Initially, she was getting money because the Social Security is slow to figure these kind of things out. Then when you file your tax return, they say, "Well, you know what? You earned too much money. We aren't going to pay you any Social Security, and you've locked in a lower benefit." So it doesn't help you to do that. Unfortunately, she didn't have the extra money to pay it back because we found it in that 365-day window, but it was too late. She didn't want to pay it back. She just kind of lost out on the increased payment. And by the way, her budget was tight. It would have helped her to have follow the advice. All right. Social Security, the way it gets taxed. There's an interesting thing here. Social Security gets taxed in its own way. Now, this might change this year, so I'm just going to cover it really quickly because Trump has said that he doesn't want Social Security to get taxed by anybody. Right now, it is income weighted or means tested. So if you earn more money, you get less because it gets taxed more. Whether or not they pass this, I don't know. I would assume they're going to have some difficulty doing it because they don't have money in the budget to just start paying out people in general. So it goes against kind of what they're trying to do now with cutting the amount the government's paying out. Anyhow, just so you know that this is how it works today. Could change tomorrow. And it's called provisional income. Oh, by the way, so this tax form right here is 33 pages long, and it's a lot of rules on how Social Security gets paid, but it's what they call provisional income. And you just divide your Social Security, which goes in line item number 1, by 2. Couldn't be any simpler than that. So it's $12,000, right? So you add $12,000 to how much earned income you had for the year. In this example or illustration, it's 30,000. So 42,000 is, in this illustration, your provisional income. So you say, "Okay, I know what my provisional income is. How much taxes do I pay if I'm single, right? And then how much taxes would you pay if you were married?" All right. If you were single, $42,000 is above or below 34,000. So you pay tax on 85% of your Social Security. In other words, 85% goes into your payment when you figure out how much you're going to pay in Social Security. And $42,000 is in between if you're married. So only 50% of your Social Security gets taxed. You do get 50% of it tax free. I won't say free, tax free. But if you are single, you would owe tax on 85%. So you'll notice here 15%, no matter how much you get paid, 15% is you don't pay tax on. So again, I want to come back here to provisional income. There's a couple of things here, and I know that if you talk to us or you set up a time to talk to us, we're going to walk you through this, but there's a couple of types of income that do not count towards your Social Security being taxed, which lowers your income tax every year. So what is that? Roth distributions. If you take money out of a Roth account, let's say you took $1 million out of a Roth account, you do not pay any more. It does not affect your income tax as far as your Social Security goes, right? There's no limit to this, so you can take as much out as you want. Second of all, there is cash value life insurance. Think of it as you've paid money into a cash value life insurance that has insurance component to it, but it also has a separate component to it that has cash value, and it accrues over time. Anytime you take money out of a cash value life insurance policy, as of today, it is tax free because you're taking a loan out of your policy. You are not taking money out, you're taking a loan. Important distinction by the IRS. All right. So these two are legal loopholes as of today. One thing that does not count, and for those of you who are in high tax states, California, Illinois, New York, so forth and so on, municipal bonds. If you took $100,000 out in interest in municipal bonds, it does affect your provisional income, which does affect your taxes. As far as how much your Social Security gets taxed. All right. So again, I could show you illustrations on this, but just suffice it to say that if you're a high income earner and you got municipal bonds, you could be paying higher taxes on your Social Security. So early versus wait. So let's look at an illustration. And the only thing here that we want to see is we got a married couple that come to us and we say, okay, what does it look like if we retire early and start taking Social Security? And what does it look like if we wait? You know, is there any benefit to waiting? So we've got a married couple, 62 and 64, $34,000 in Social Security if they took it early. All right. So again, they took it early. They're going to start retirement at 62, but they have $752,000 saved in IRAs, 401ks, employer plans. They need 6% annual return. We're going to say that they're going to get 6% annual return. And there is a 3% cost of living average. You're going to average 6%. And there's average of 3% inflation. Now they need $70,000 to live on. Right. So you come to us, you come to any financial advisor, you're going to say, okay, how much money do you need to live on when you retire? It's $70,000. And their life expectancy is age 86 and 89, respectively. Oh, sorry. And this is what it looks like if they took it early. All right. The blue line is Social Security. You see that every year they're getting Social Security. The orange line is money that they've taken out of savings out of that 401k. So this is money that $750,000 is giving them. The red line starts at $70,000 and goes up 3% every year. And the orange above the red line is the amount they pay in taxes. Everybody pays taxes. So again, you'll notice here though that year 24, something happens. So there's no orange line. And for those of you that are paying attention, you already know what the slide looks like. But essentially, year 24, you have run out of retirement savings. Keep in mind, you're still getting Social Security. But if you need $70,000, or at this point, you're probably up around $135,000 and you're getting 60, you're short by 60 grand a year. Where's that money going to come from? Well, this is not a good situation to be in, right? So taking Social Security makes you run out of money at 24 years in this example. I say, okay, that's if you took it early. What would happen if you took it later? Now, a couple of things that you'll notice here right away. First off, the orange line. You'll see that they are paying for their own retirement the first 8 years that they retire. Again, this is age 62. So they're into it at age 70. They're starting their Social Security at age 70. Again, everything holds true. 70,000 year one, it goes up by 3%. They're paying for the front, or they're basically front running for the first couple of years. And now their Social Security is much higher. Couple of things you'll notice. First off, on the other slide, they ran out of money at 24 years. They ran out of savings at 24 years. Here, at 24 years, they're still going strong. So that amounts to they had enough money during retirement. You'll see that they were able to live 35 years instead of 24. So that gets you an extra 11 years in retirement. So we say, did that make sense, right? You say, okay, well, what does it boil down to? Again, this is an illustration, but it's important to know that they would have received $186,000 more in Social Security, or 30% more in Social Security, just by doing a couple tweaks. Not big tweaks, okay? Just a few little tweaks. 30% more in Social Security. They had 14 more years of portfolio longevity, or money in the bank that they could live on while they're in retirement. And they paid $35,000 less in taxes, even though they had 14 years more worth of income. So this is important. You kind of got the trifecta here. You earn 30% more in Social Security. You got 14 more years in your portfolio, and you were able to trim your taxes by $35,000. All right. So for those of you, I'm going to take one little pause here. For those of you who are watching the call live, at 7:50, you are going to receive a text from me. The text is the link. You just click on the link. That will take you to download your workbook. Don't do that yet. You just got the text just now. If you are watching this afterwards, I'll show you where to go to download the workbook. Don't do that right now. I'm finishing up, just a couple more minutes, and you'll be able to get your workbook. All right. So about your statement, there are no cost of living increases applied to your statement. This is if you go to Social Security SSA.gov and you download your workbook. It assumes that you work till age 62, full retirement age, or age 70. In other words, if you're looking at it, you're 60 years old. If it says that the amount you're going to get at age 70, it's going to assume you're going to work another 10 years. All right. This is important because a lot of people get this. They think that if they just retired and sat back, that would be the amount. That is not the amount. You have to work until 70 years old. It does look at your record only, and it doesn't coordinate a spouse's or divorce benefit or anything like that. Just your benefit. And it doesn't give you advice. They're not in the business of giving you advice because Social Security Administration is essentially not there to give you advice. They can give you bad advice, in which case that would not be very good. So they tell their agents not to give you, strategies. So a couple things on the Roth recovery strategy. Again, quick illustration here to just show you that it is potentially worth it to take a look at. It's not for everybody, but certainly if you do have a lot of money, not a lot, but if you have $250,000 or more in your 401ks, IRAs, this is something that we'd want to take a look at. So you got a married couple, both were government workers. Actually, this happens to be somebody that I'd worked with. They did not need the money out of their investments. They had about 1.3 million that they had put aside. Um, and they said, okay, well, what does our retirement look like? And coordinating their benefit. Well, what's interesting is that this is the tax view from the software that we use. Money Guide Pro will put your numbers in here and we'll just take a look and we'll say, okay, so the interesting thing here is because they didn't need to take a lot of money out, they're getting paid, they're paying $300,000, $400,000 or more in taxes. We say, well, that's a lot of money. Nobody, look, they only had 1.3 million in savings. How are they end up paying $400,000, $500,000 in taxes? It's required minimum distributions. They do sneak up on people, and it is unfortunately something that once you start, you can't get out of. All right. So the software says, okay, again, does it make sense to do Roth conversions up front? And a Roth conversion is where you take money out of an IRA, you put it in a Roth IRA, and you pay the taxes as you do it every year. So we say, okay, you end up paying more in taxes on the first couple of years, but everything in green is money that you save. Say, okay, so does it benefit this particular couple to pay the taxes up front versus what they save? And you'll see here that just by doing Roth conversions, this couple would save approximately $1 million in taxes. So you save $1 million in taxes just by doing Roth conversions. And you say, well, it gets a little bit better than that. So they save $1 million in taxes, approximately. It also increases the tax-free net worth of $2 million. This means that if they are giving the money to their children, they now can give their children $2 million that they've already paid the taxes on. Okay. So for those of you that are doing that sort of thing, you can pay the taxes for your kids. I was going to say some people don't care about it. They just, kids get what they get. And between the inheritance and charity giving, they have about $4 million then to give away. So it is something that we take a look at. Again, not everybody qualifies for this, and it doesn't make sense for everybody, but it is something that we would want to take a look at for you if you have more than $250,000 in savings, IRAs, 401ks. All right, so you really have two choices. Again, your first option is you can download the free workbook. You go to maxoursocialsecurity.com. And for those of you that are on, oh, I just got choked up. I'm putting this. I'm putting this in the chat. For those of you who are watching this live and you gave us the correct cell phone number, you just received a text a couple minutes ago on where to do that. For those of you that are on the Zoom call, it's maxoursocialsecurity.com. You can go to that link and download the workbook. It gets sent to you right away. And then the second option is you could schedule a time. Obviously, you can still get the workbook, but you could schedule a time for our team to give you a turnkey report. We do all the heavy lifting. We also do some of these strategies and try to help you figure out what's the best way to maximize your Social Security, coordinating benefits and things. And also take a look at potentially lowering your taxes. And so really out of the hundreds of reports that our team has run, nobody has said that they didn't get value out of it, because what it does is it gives you concrete, measurable, you can see it on the charts. And I know not everybody's an engineer, but it gives you ammunition to know how to strategize for your retirement. All right. Again, this is a benefit that once you start, you pretty much don't stop. So it's super important to get this one right. You don't want to make a mistake on this. Um, we'll let you know kind of the break even. And this report is about 40 pages long. But what it does for you is it empowers you to make a smart decision. That's all it does. We do this for you. This is part of the workbook that we do for you, and we will give you a copy of this as well. All right. So you can download it, do it on your own, or you can set up a time to talk with us and one of our strategists to do that. So what you get if you set up a time is you get your Social Security analysis, you get the workbook, you get the Roth recovery strategy. And the next step really is to go to maxoursocialsecurity.com. That's where you download the workbook. This is the block that you would fill out. Again, the top of it shows you the Social Security workbook. And if you want to have a free Social Security analysis by our team, you just click yes, right? At the bottom, it brings up our calendar. You pick a time where our team members are free, or myself, and we'll work with you to get that done. All right. So I see that we are roughly running out of time. Let me open up. So the question here, 1959. So I believe, Lorenzo, your full retirement age is going to be 67. Yeah, 67. Um, so, I know what the question is. So this is how it works. Again, remember on the chart that I showed you, every year that you wait, you're going to get 8% more. It's not quite the case. Every month that you wait, you get 1/12 of 8%. So it's about 0.65% added to Social Security. All right. So it's not quite 8% on the anniversary dates. For every month that you wait, you get a little bit more. But I would wait until age 67 or your full retirement age to go ahead and claim. That's where you're really going to get the most bang for your buck. All right. So Anil writes, what are the tax implications if you rescind within 365 days? There are no tax implications. So when you rescind your application, essentially you've already started the process, right? So Social Security, maybe they sent you a check or two. Again, you have up to a year. So let's say that you do it on your 11th month, right? You're getting $2,000 a month. At this point, you've got $22,000. This is kind of worst case scenario. You've waited 11 months. You say, you know what? I'm going to rescind my application. What are the steps? First off, you got to call Social Security and let them know you're going to rescind it. But second of all, you'd have to pay back that $22,000. So there is no tax implications because the $22,000 you're going to that they paid you, now you're going to take back because you're going to basically they gave you a loan. All right. So you pay it back. This is the way it works. And it's as if it never happened. So you could continue to increase your benefit every year thereafter. All right, so it is 8 o'clock. I do appreciate everybody being on this call. Again, I do have other workshops. I know some of you have been on some of my other ones, whether it's you're on the Social Security one now, but whether it's estate planning, income, lifetime income, what's the best way to avoid a big loss in the market? There's a bunch of other workshops that I'll do. Now that you have, if this is your first one, you are in our database so that when I have other workshops, that you will get an email. You can sign up for those as well. So feel free to do that. And again, thanks everybody for being on the call. If you do want to, feel free to take advantage of the Social Security analysis where myself and my team does the heavy lifting for you. And we'll also try to put together a plan if you need to bridge the gap between retirement and starting Social Security. More than happy to put that together for you as well. Again, thanks for attending. We look forward to seeing you on another call, and we'll see you soon.